Welcome back to another edition of Talking Ball. Today, we're going to be looking at Drake Powell, the wing from North Carolina. Now that he has decided to stay in the draft, it's appropriate to talk about his draft potential, his potential as a player, and what I think he does well, what I think he needs to improve upon, and where I think he'll be drafted. So let's get right into it. All right, so Drake Powell, he's a freshman wing from North Carolina. He's 19 years old. He's 6'5", about 200 pounds, and has a 7-foot wingspan. The number one thing with Drake Powell that you really won't get a sense of in these highlights necessarily is he's an outstanding defensive player. I think he can guard 1 through 3, and he can guard some 4s. He's a point of attack defender. He really can make things difficult for opposing ball handlers. He can guard point guards, certainly. And for me, as somebody who watched every Duke game, so I watched all 3 North Carolina and Duke matchups, Powell did a really good job of making things difficult for Duke lottery picks, Con Knipple, and to a lesser extent, Cooper Flack. And he did so because he's able to play out of a low stance. He will guard, the full 94 feet. He will pick up in the backcourt. And then he's got long arms. He will play. He's not exceptionally physical, but he will get into your space, and that makes things uncomfortable. He can get steals and block shots, although he didn't necessarily get a ton of them. I think some of that, though, that improved as the year went on. Some of that is he didn't necessarily play in his position, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And then lastly, in terms of what I think helps him as a defender, he's a tremendous athlete. Like, he had some of the best combine results in terms of the vertical, the speed and agility testing. Like, he was a premier athlete at the combine. I think that helps him defensively, as well as, I guess I should say one more thing, which is he's got a really good feel for the game. He's got a high basketball IQ. He knows where he should be, both defensively and offensively. And speaking of the offense, well, Powell did play out of position for most of the season, or not most of the season, but good portions of the season where he played at the 4 spot, and that certainly did not help him, both offensively and defensively, but I think more so offensively. Powell, he averaged 7 points a game and just 1 assist, so obviously there's not a lot of production. This is more potential that we're looking at in terms of Powell, the offensive player. But with that being said, I thought he showed some nice flashes as a 3-point shooter where he made 1 3 per game. He shot about 37-38% from beyond the arc. We'll get to the stats in a little bit here. He also showcased an ability to knock down a mid-range jumper. He liked, not necessarily efficiently, but he liked to shoot them off the dribble. I think some of that could come with time. That's more where the draft is more an art than a science. We're projecting now with Powell offensively. And I also thought, and I think this skill is more legit than the mid-range shooting, I thought his passing ability was pretty good. He didn't get a lot of attempts, but the one type of play where I really noticed that consistently was his ability to pass into the post from like the 3-point line. Not necessarily something you're going to do a lot in the NBA, but it shows me that he has good feel for the game, good passing ability. Now, what are some things he could improve upon? Well, the shooting, number one, and he alluded to this in his combine interview where he talked about people not being as sure about his shooting. And I think ultimately that comes back to, he mentioned the number of attempts from 3, which weren't necessarily high, but for me, it's the free throw shooting, where he's only at 65% from the free throw line. Again, not a ton of attempts, only 1.5 attempts there. Some of that was his role, but that gives me a little bit of concern as to how much of this 3-point shooting success will translate to the NBA level. Additionally, he just didn't get a ton of opportunities in North Carolina. We talked about that before in terms of this being more potential than it is production. And so a lot of this is projecting where I think his role is offensively. I think he could be a good 3-and-D guy with a little bit of playmaking upside as a tertiary guy there, and potentially the ability to create his own shot from that mid-range area. So statistically, Drake Powell in about 25 minutes a game averaged 7 points, 3.5 rebounds, 1 assist, and just under a steal and a block per game. Maybe just over a half a steal and a block per game if you want to look at that a little bit more granularly there. And just over a half a turnover per game. So over a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. The shooting percentages, 48% from the field, 38% from 3 on 2.5 attempts there. 57% from 2-point range, which is a really good number. You like to see that. And then the 65% from the free throw line. So with Powell, like I said, a lot of this is about projection. Currently, I think ESPN has him just outside the top 30, like as an early second-round pick. I have him pretty considerably higher than that. I have him just around 20 to 25 range, closer to 20 on my draft board. The reason for that is I just think with his skill set and position, it's really hard to find guys like that in the NBA. And I almost think of it almost like a quarterback in the NFL, which may be a better comparison for like a number one option that you can get in the draft, where it's like if you have a guy who could be a number one option on your team, you got to take him higher. Maybe it's not. Maybe I don't have the best NFL reference, but when you're and you have the ability to be a true 3-and-D wing defender, it's just really hard to find those kind of guys in the NBA. They get paid well, and I think they get drafted higher. And similar to a guy like Carter Bryant, who doesn't necessarily have the production, but has that frame to be a 3-and-D type player, I think Powell goes higher than maybe people think. It's interesting. This isn't a perfect comp, but he kind of reminds me in some ways of a Mikal Bridges. The offensive production isn't there, but I think defensively they're very similar. They've got similar builds. Mikal Bridges is 1 inch taller, and he's got 1 inch more on his wingspan. When Bridges, though, left for the NBA, he had 2 more years of... He was 2 years older at the time, and he had 3 more years of college experience. So that is a big difference for Powell. I do think Powell is going to need to spend some time at the G League to just continue to craft his abilities. But I think Powell is a worthwhile first-round pick because of the tools and ability and potential that I think he has. So let me know what you guys think about Powell. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.